I've done, and regret is just a memory written on my brow, and there's nothing I can do about it now.
We're joined by Tucker Franklin of the Kansas City Sports Network. My man has got his finger on the pulse for everything Kansas City Chiefs. And to be honest, Tucker, it's a fascinating topic. I appreciate you joining us.
Hey, Mitch, I appreciate you giving me a call, getting me on the podcast, too. It's great to catch up with you at the Super Bowl, and glad I could be on the program and talk a little ball with you.
Now, I know you're not at 100%, my friend. You accrued an injury this morning while you were lifting. Are you you're in good spirits at least?
Yeah, no, I'm good. I'm as good as I can be, right? You know, good players adjust, and we got to learn to fight through a little bit of some adversity, and that's always what I pride myself on, is being able to fight through adversity. Nevertheless, I'm here. I'm ready to rip, ready to talk some ball.
Well, I got to tell you, we really appreciate you jumping on. Let's get into it. The Kansas City Chiefs are fascinating storyline this offseason, not only for the potential moves they might have to make. We've seen these happen. It's a fascinating time in the NFL season, if you want to call it. It's post-combine. The information sharing is at an all-time high. Personnel staffs have sat with themselves. They have a vision for what's going on, but there's still so many moving parts. We've seen the Kansas City Chiefs make these changes by restructuring Patrick Mahomes' contract because the cap doesn't exist. And then you also have stuff like Juwan Taylor being released and Trent McDuffie, a guy who we thought might be a potential an up candidate, a guy who gets re-upped, gets sent off kind of in a weird Marcus Peters deja vu moment.
Yeah, that was weird.
So tell us, I know it's a lot to digest, but as we sit here, this will be released on Thursday before Monday's legal tampering period. What's the state of the union for the Kansas City Chiefs?
Boy, they're going to have to figure out what to do on the defensive side of the ball, man. As well, you look at that defensive roster, and they've got Chris Jones, who's been a cornerstone, a franchise cornerstone for quite some time with that team. But you start to look around, and there's really no future face of the defense on there. Chris Jones is on the plus side of 30. The side of 30 you don't really want to be on if you're in the NFL, right? So, damn it. I know it. It's too bad. He's going into, I believe, his age 32 season. So I mean, he's up there in terms of age. They don't really have another. I mean, George Karlaftis, a guy in the same draft class as Trent McDuffie, they extended and gave a lot of money to. They kind of think that maybe he can be that face. But I mean, Trent McDuffie was probably the other guy that you'd be like, all right, we can hand the keys over to this guy. Nick Bolton, they did give a decent contract to, but I don't know if really anyone in Kansas City or really anyone feels like that's the next vocal leader, or just straight up leader of that defense, right? You had Tyrann Mathieu, you had Frank Clark for so many years, right? You've got Justin Reed. You had guys with swagger on the back end of that defense a lot of times. And when you talk about Frank Clark, that was an attitude guy, and that was an attitude changer. They don't have that right now on the defensive side of the ball. There's been a lot of comparisons to you brought up the Marcus Peters trade. I think that's a really interesting one, especially when you talk about the Rams, because the Rams traded for Marcus Peters and then went on a Super Bowl run right after that. So that's kind of interesting to think about. And another trade that gets brought up a whole lot is the one in 2022 for the Tyreek Hill trade, where the Chiefs got a king's ransom in return for trading away Tyreek Hill. And they were able to rebuild kind of their defense by trading away Tyreek Hill. Now, some of the thoughts going into it is like, okay, are they going to be able to rebuild the offense now by trading away Trent McDuffie? I think it's a little bit of a stretch there because they don't have the Patrick Mahomes of the defense that they can kind of rely on to hold that side of the ball down while they rebuild the other side, right? So it's going to be interesting to see how they philosophically fill out this defense, because they've got some pretty big roster holes on that side of the ball.
Right. So you talk about vocal leadership. I feel like that's something that sometimes players can come into, right? Like a Nick Bolton. Sure. I feel like I didn't reach I don't want to say pinnacle of my vocal leadership, because that was never kind of never like a superhero power, but it's something that you grow into, even if you're a guy on that side of the ball. I mean, listen, I think that you have a guy like Patrick Mahomes who's going to have seasons of change in his NFL career, however long it is. And I feel like this is one of those things where it's going to be one of these seasons of change. Now, granted, I know that tension in that building and tension around being a Chiefs fan is at an all-time high, coming off of, I mean, if you want to call a Super Bowl loss a disappointing season for a fan, you guys have earned that right. But also, it's the first time since 2014 this team hasn't been, wasn't in the dance.
Right.
So you're going to have to bolster up young talent. And now you have 2 first-round draft picks.
Mm-hmm.
And you said you want some guys on defense. I'm going to give you a guy on defense that I think would fit smashingly well. And then I want you to give me a guy that you think would fit on defense smashingly well. We talked about a guy, you can't have enough pass rushers.
Absolutely.
Right? You can't have enough guys. And I think George Karlaftis, if you asked him, I think the productivity was there the year before. You get that contract, and he was making pressures and plays. Maybe he wasn't getting the sack accruement. And then Chris Jones, I think, has a fire lit underneath him, right? Ruben Bain's a guy we've all talked about from Miami, but there's another guy on the other side, Akeem Mesidor.
Oh yeah.
All right. And I've talked to some folks who, you know, it was bowl season. You talk to these guys in these bowl seasons, and you know, they asked these offensive linemen for the Miami Hurricanes, who would you rather face? Would you rather face Ruben Bain or Akeem Mesidor? Every single one of them said Akeem Mesidor. And then you look at the film, this guy's a player. I think he's a first-round draft pick, would be a fantastic guy to add another edge presence. Now, you tell me who you want to see these Chiefs take.
Well, look, I think you're going to give me a laugh and I can say Ruben Bain, but you see,
I knew it. I was like, he's going to say Bain.
That's too easy, Mitch. We watched that guy play. I know he's got like historically short arms, right? As a guy with some pretty historically short arms myself, I didn't play defensive end as nearly as well as he did. He plays defensive end incredibly well. The way he's able to win is so impressive. What I kind of want them to do is, we've been talking about the Rams here for a little bit. They did this back with Jared Verse and Fisk. With Verse and Fisk, they did this, drafted the 2 teammates. I think if they go and use their 2 first-round picks and use one on Bain at 9, because, you know, people might be scared of the arm length. Go ahead, we'll take the tape. We'll trust the tape, right? We saw him performing some pretty good offensive linemen. I'll be okay with that. And then you take Mesidor at 29 now, the pick that they have. If you can pair those 2 guys together, bring them back. You need pass rush depth too. That's the other thing, is you need guys who can rush the passer and guys at depth too. So I wouldn't be honestly upset at all if the Chiefs come out here and they take 2 edge rushers with those 2 picks, or 2 defenders, truthfully, with those first picks, because that's going to be a big thing too, is they've got to fill out this roster. They have to get young, cost-controlled talent at premium positions as well. So the premium position of edge rusher, everyone's going to need an edge rusher, and those premium edge rushers just don't hit the market because everyone needs one.
Yeah.
So if they take 2 edge rushers in the first 50 picks, I think that is absolutely a home run for Brent Vichico.
Now, your wish list there, and your wish for the draft to get both of them in the first round.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know what positions are needed from between pick 9 and 29 with everybody in front of you, but I don't know if they're going to stay on the board.
It's ambitious for sure. It is an ambitious aspiration.
But, you know, you never know.
Be ambitious.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's the important thing. Right. So this is all speculation for the draft, but free agency is the thing that's coming up imminently. Yeah. And we all know that everyone, including ourselves, who look at these teams and have hopes and wants, doesn't really matter if voids are filled in free agency. It's pass rusher. I mean, like you said, there's this price point for that. There's 2 positions that I think are interesting to me, and one that we saw that was ever prevalent in the NFL, and that one is the backup quarterback. It's not sexy, but especially with the Chiefs right now, listen, Pat, all he needs is one crack smoking idiot to tell him that he's not going to be ready. He will be ready. All right. That being said, we saw the importance. I thought Gardner Minshew did a very good job, but is there a quarterback out there? Because I feel like it's going to be a saturated market full of guys who have starting caliber, who's going to be on these 1-year deals to kind of go and make this next step. Is there a guy that you think might be the next backup quarterback that's going to be available?
It's interesting because the Chiefs' philosophy for a while there, and Mitch, you know this well too, with Mahomes, was like that, a guy that, you know, Patrick can bounce stuff off of in meetings, kind of like an older guy that, you know, he can talk to and get some guidance from. And in recent years, it's been kind of a shift from, you know, you went from then Blaine Gabbert came in. When Blaine Gabbert came
Missouri guy, great Missouri
guy. Had to give Blaine a shout out.
Another Jags guy.
Yeah, another Jags guy. You saw him come in there, and then you had Carson Wentz, and then you had for a year. Then you had Gardner Minshew last year for a year. All these guys have been a year after Chad Henne was that kind of staple for them as a backup quarterback. Oh, dude. I mean,
Another Jag.
couldn't.
Hey, yeah. I don't want to interrupt you, but the Chad Henne struck a chord because when we played you guys, I was with the Jags then, and when Patrick Mahomes got hurt, he was out of the game. I think it was the game that we started off with an onside kick and got it.
Okay, yeah.
And Mahomes got hurt, and we're like, I mean, I don't wish ill upon anybody or be hurt, but
Yeah.
we're trying to take down Goliath, right? And we're just like, oh, all right, Mahomes is going out of the game. Here comes Henne. He goes 99 yards straight down the field, scores a touchdown, and we're like, fuck.
He's a dog, man.
Like,
He's
are
a
you
dog.
kidding me?
He really is a dog. So continue. Who's the next dog?
I just will assume that they're going to stick with Gardner Minshew. Again, this is an organization that loves like continuity in terms of who they have and with the system and everything like that. And having a guy like that would be good. Marcus Mariota is an interesting name to throw out there, just because there could be some familiarity with the Andy Reid system that he has out there. But I really think it's probably just they're going to try to get some continuity there with Gardner Minshew, because there's not also a ton of guys out there that be like, oh, week one you feel really good if this guy's your starter, right? Like, I mean, there's not a ton of guys out there right now. I mean, I think I saw some like reports of some guys making lists that are saying that like Malik Willis is the best free agent available. And I'm like, boy,
please
don't want to disparage Malik Willis or anything, but if that's your best free agent available, it's not a very strong free agent class. And I don't think the Chiefs are going to be in the market for spending that kind of money. But it probably, if I had to put my money on anything, it would be Gardner Minshew coming back.
Right. Well, that makes sense to me. How do
another
you?
Jags guy.
Another Jags,
Jags man.
Another Jags guy. There's a connection. All right. So one last question for you, and then we're going to let you go. Okay.
Okay.
Here's the thing that is interesting to me as an offensive lineman. The Jawan Taylor thing made a lot of sense on paper. You have to get this cat back. Say what you want to say about the guy. He might be prone to jumping before the ball is snapped. I think he's got a gift for trying to time that thing perfectly. Of course, it was a point of emphasis, and the NFL is going to crucify you for it. That being said, it is hard to find starting caliber tackles in this league. How do you address the void that's left from Jawan Taylor being gone?
I think that they're fortunate enough that they have Jalen Moore already on their roster. And Jalen Moore was a guy who they signed last year in free agency to play left tackle. And going into the draft, you thought that Jalen Moore was your left tackle. That's what you thought. That's what everyone anticipated. And then they had Josh Simmons fall to them in their lap. And they couldn't say no to that guy, right? They actually traded back and ended up selecting him still, because they got the 32nd pick and ended up selecting Simmons. When he's there, when Josh Simmons is there, there's belief that he can be a very just elite offensive lineman.
I agree. I would agree.
You watch, I mean, man, you just watch some of that tape, and it is so beautiful. It is teach tape when you see him on some of these things, and the way he's effortlessly able to do things is so impressive. I listened to an interview with Trey Smith talk about Josh Simmons, and I think it was with Gruden, and he was talking about how effortlessly he makes like hard things look easy. And that's something that's crazy. But with Jawan Taylor, I think I feel so bad for Jawan Taylor because I think that Chiefs fans give him an unfair rap, and I think NFL fans give him an unfair rap because Chris Collinsworth had a bad day and wanted to point something out on the opening game.
Do not get me started.
Do not get us riled up about Chris Collinsworth.
And that's the thing, is that like that basically had torpedoed his time in Kansas City. Chris Collinsworth pointing it out the whole time and then making it a point of emphasis to talk about it all the time, when Jawan Taylor is not the only offensive lineman that does that. Right? Like that is not a new thing. I mean, Lane Johnson does it all the time. Love Lane Johnson, but he's still like, I mean, he was unfairly kind of targeted for all of that, and that's going to sour people's perception of him in Kansas City. But when he's not getting penalties, he was a well above average tackle.
Agreed.
And I think that's what people don't really. The penalties obviously are a very tough thing because it's setting you behind the sticks, and you don't want to be behind the sticks. But that's so, as you mentioned, Mitch, it's so hard to find that level. And I don't know if Jalen Moore can be above average. I think he could be average. He could be replacement level, to use a baseball term, right? He can be that level player. But if you want to go that way with your offensive line, if your fifth best offensive lineman is your right tackle, I don't know how necessarily great I feel about that, because Patrick has shown that he clearly would rather have a stronger tackles than the middle. His middle's always been strong, right? His middle three. but with the tackles, the way that he drops and everything like that, he much would rather have those strong tackles, and for him to be able to move out of the pocket. But I guess the benefit is he can see that tackle, right? It's the right tackle, so that's the one that he can see. If Simmons is there, you feel good about that. But the other part about Jalen Moore is it feels like that's what they're gonna do, right? Because they have Jalen Moore under contract for this year. I think he's making $18 million. So better go over there and play right tackle.
There's your starting tackle.
There's your starting tackle right there. The thing about that is,
I think he's solid as a rock, dude. I really do. I think he gets opportunity. He'll be solid.
He played a lot of left tackle in San Francisco before he came over, and I think he only exclusively played left tackle in San Francisco. They don't really cross-train in San Francisco a whole lot. But that's a big thing with Andy Heck. Andy Heck loves cross-training.
Who are you kidding?
Well, I'm preaching to the choir here.
Except center, which is thank God. Thank you, Jesus.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I can't imagine what that would be like. But
Casey's got. I lied. Casey's got one last question for you.
I do. This is your big hot take moment. Okay.
Okay.
Well, let's just because you talked a lot about the team already, but let's just talk about free agency and whatnot. What do you think your big splash take that other people may not know or may not think about that will happen for the Kansas City Chiefs here in the next couple weeks?
I think that they're not done on the trade market. I think they're going to make another trade, whether that's trading one of their players away or making a trade to acquire somebody else, whether that be in a wide receiver, or maybe there's another player that Chiefs fans have been accustomed to seeing for a long time that's also on the block. Who knows? But I don't think they're done in the trade market. I think that they might still be wheeling and dealing. You look at some of the holes on the roster. Look, they're looking at the same roster we are, guys. I mean, that's what so they know what's going on. So they've got to make some moves to kind of fill this out before they get to the draft, so they feel comfortable if they had to roll the ball out there before the draft started that they can, and they feel like okay with their team. But I would not be surprised if they make another trade.
Okay. You heard it first here on the Monday Morning with Mitch podcast from Tucker Franklin. You can catch him on the Kansas City Sports Network. Where else can we catch you, and what else you got going on, my friend?
Yeah, follow me on socials at Tucker D. Franklin, everything, Instagram, Twitter, all that. But I got that football show as well on KC Sports Network. So either one you search up, you can find it. That's Mondays and Fridays. We do that show with Matt Verderame, Sports Illustrated. So him and I talk about the whole league in general. So on KC Sports Network. But I appreciate you having me, Mitch.
You are gifted in this space, my friend. God bless you. Can't wait to talk to you in the future, buddy. All right. And it was a privilege meeting you at the combine. That was a treat, pal. You have a gift. Until next time, pal, be good.
Yeah, I'll talk to you soon.
See you, buddy.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are joined by friend of the show, Brent Martineau of Action Jack Sports. He's with us. Another man who has been fighting the good fight. He's been doing his job so well that his voice is a little bit raspy. He's going to power through it because he's an absolute dog. Brent, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing great other than the voice. Just been yelling at umpires, man. It's baseball, softball season in my house.
No.
You know how that goes. Or maybe you don't yet.
I do know how that goes. It's, what's interesting is because you understand, like, especially when you have kids, you're so aware that you don't want to be that dad. But then when it's the Holy Spirit comes out just a little bit. It just kind of comes out like, all right. And then you're, I mean, it's different for me. My kids are 4 and 6 years old. So it really is just like, hey, high five on the way through. There's no outs. If they get the ball, it's cool. But God bless you. You're doing the Lord's work, my friend. Let's dive into the Jacksonville Jaguars coming off of a incredibly productive season. I know that even with that huge change from where they were, which was like 4-13 to 13-5, I think at the end with that loss in the playoffs, they still felt like there was meat on the bone. Maybe the most complete team in the AFC. There doesn't seem to be much chatter going on. What's the thing that a Gentile like me is not hearing about behind closed doors?
I think there's two big storylines that maybe you are hearing them, but it's Travis Hunter and the return, because this whole run for the Jags, they started playing better football when he got out, which is really weird. But for whatever reason, they found a way to step up their game, became more of a complete team. That might have happened with Travis Hunter as well, but it just happened without Travis Hunter. And so now you throw him in the mix, maybe with a little more of a defined role. And I think it's a story of the offseason. But there are other stories like ETN. How do you replace it? Might have been your MVP of the offense front to back.
Right.
Devin Lloyd, most impactful defensive guy this past year, I would say. He's going to be probably gone. So, yeah, I think the big story that we're kind of talking about is we're going to look up by the end of next week, I believe, and you're going to feel like the Jags on paper are worse than they were when they left the field against the Buffalo Bills here in January. And that's not a very comforting thing if you're a fan, right? You feel like, hey, we should go and be in another direction. But for years, the Jags have spent a ton of money this time of year. They're not going to do that. They're going to be very modest in the free agency world, I would suspect. And they don't have a first-round draft pick.
They
It's one of the
can't.
most unusual off seasons I've covered in my almost 20 years here. And I think it's going to feel like a bit of a step back on paper. And then we'll collect ourselves and get excited as we get closer to the season.
Sometimes not having this, I mean, what do you want to call it? Volatile ebbs and flows, this kind of tide of emotions that are intertwined sometimes with free agency draft, filling these huge voids, making these splash plays. Sometimes that's most of the times that's a blessing. That's a sign of a very good football team. You talked about a guy, Travis Etienne, who's on just came off the cusp of 4 out of 5 years of 1,000 yards rushing. How do you replace that? And Devin Lloyd leads the league and with linebackers, interceptions, takes this huge leap. Are there guys on the roster that are there to fill that void right now?
Yeah, I don't think so on the defensive side. Let's take Etienne first. I don't know exactly if Bashal Tutin can do that. I think they drafted him with the idea that he could do that, but let's just take the value of the player. Talking about a late first-round pick in Etienne, whether they should have picked him at 25 or not back in 2021. And you're talking about a fourth-round pick in Bashal Tutin. But there's a lot to like about Tutin. And if he fits in Cohen's offense, that's the Bucky Irving guy that really fit in Tampa's offense, potential. And I think they're going to trust their eyes there, guys. I think when you go get Tutin and LaQuinn Allen, and they perform that way with 4th and 7th round picks, Gladstone and the scouting staff and Cohen and everybody can say, hey, we've got 11 picks. We can go find another guy like this. You can't replace, though, the experience, right? The lack of. The quick one on Lloyd is no. But here's what I would suggest, and this might sound a little bit as a defense of the organization. First of all, it's going to be an astronomical price. Probably not in the ballpark to be able to do it right now. A couple of years ago, maybe they would take a flyer on this. But I'm not sure Devin Lloyd is actually going to replace what Devin Lloyd did this past year. He might have just had a career year, and all due respect to him, I hope he continues to play great. But I don't think he was going to do that again. I mean, that was an astronomically good year. Can Ventrell Miller, who was actually in a battle in August for that spot, and he step in and fulfill the role they want, or are they going in the draft, which I would suggest they will in some degree because it's a pretty deep linebacker draft.
On paper, we talked about on paper, this is what we're going to be looking a lot at until we actually, even through OTAs, you're going to get hyped up. And then really when the season comes about, all we can do is look at paper and then speculate. But on paper, there's still some really strong position groups. I feel like the offensive line is returning all 5 starters. It's fantastic. That's usually a huge talking point for a lot of these organizations. Defensive line, you can always bolster other things. Is it that linebackers unit filling that in? Is it that running backs unit? Is there another position on this team that you feel like can still be bolstered that might need to be bolstered to help the Jags, which is hard to say, take that even next step?
I think most people feel like cornerback is next. And now Travis Hunter could step in there and hopefully be a stud, right? Hopefully be a superstar, pick number 2. I mean, you kind of need him to be. So that replaces, at least in the beginning of the year, what maybe the fans thought about Tyson Campbell, who was paid $20 million a year. But who's opposite him? And I don't think, at least right now, they're going to re-sign Buster Brown. Fans would like them, or some do, want them to re-sign Buster Brown. I think they're going to try to find that in the draft. Jordan Lewis comes back healthy. Could they kick out Jarian Jones? So I think there's a bit of a mystery, or unknown at the very least, in the secondary. You also get Caleb Ransaw, who they drafted in the 3rd round, never played because of injury. He'll now step into that safety spot, get a little younger, more athletic. But we have no idea if he'll play well. So I think that's really where you talk about bolster, where the Jags can take a step. And I thought the secondary played pretty well overall.
Oh, absolutely.
But I think they could be dynamic if those guys like Ransaw and Travis are really, really good.
There's not much turnover in the coaching staff this year, which I think people were speculating there might be with either Grant or Anthony dipping out. And I thought one of the things was pretty interesting to me was, I don't know if it's In the Hunt or whatever, like the organization's videographer, when they do kind of their episodes to show the different seasons in the NFL
In the
with
Hunt.
that organization, In the Hunt. Coach had this team meeting or this meeting with his coaches where he said, listen, this is the year. We've seen a bunch of one-hit wonders. This is the year. Year 2 is the thing that defines an organization. It defines a coaching staff. What do you think we're going to see in the maturation process of maybe the coordinators and or the head coach this year?
That's a great call. And I mean, you probably know this better than me. I haven't seen it around here, guys. I mean, Casey and Mitch, I've been here. It's going to be my 19th season. And
Congratulations.
I've never covered back-to-back winning seasons. So this has been the hurdle the Jags can't get over.
Right.
They can play in 23. They played a good few months, right? They got to 8-3, number 1 seed on the line, Monday Night Football, and they got hurt. Things fall apart. Boom. 2018, they get off to a good start, 3-1, and then it was a disaster after that. So this is a huge, huge deal for me. In fact, even when Cohen and company got hired, I said, listen, I think they're going to get better. They're better than a 4-13 team. To me, the next year is going to be the one. And that's when we're going to find out. So that just sets the table for, I don't know how they take it to the next level. When I talked to Cohen after the season, he hinted that there's more to this offense they didn't get to because he pared things down. But they're scoring 30 plus a game. So even if there's more, are you going to score more than 30 a game or 28 or 31? That's hard to expect. It's a great question. And I think I heard Liam say this, and I totally agree with this, that I think you can get better and your win-loss record doesn't always say it.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't think they're going to win 13 games. I think that's hard as hell to do in the NFL, especially hard as hell to do here in Jackson. But they could be a better football team because Trevor's got more command of the offense, the continuity on that offensive line now after 2 seasons in it. Brian Thomas Jr. is better than he was this year and more dynamic. So, I think they're going to be like these marginal wins, but it might not show up all the time in the win-loss column. My question is, you get into the playoffs, now you're better for that time of year than you are as a one-and-doneer, because that's really all that matters. That if you can get there, now making a run.
Well, I'm sorry, Casey, but you accrue these wins and you learn how to win these games. You have this, there's not going to be this kind of mysticism. I know I've said that earlier about playing in the playoffs. You have that experience. So I think that's super impressive and also a great thing to have in your back pocket. Casey has a question.
No, I was going to ask, what your thoughts on BTJ was. I saw some things out there. Obviously, I've learned a long time ago to believe half of what you see on social media, but could be a good bargaining chip. I mean, I know last year wasn't his greatest year. I think his first year was 23?
It was our last year. It was 24.
It was our last year with Jacksonville. Had an awesome freshman season, and then kind of a lot of drops, a lot of, again, this is all, what people want to say and blame, players for, but missed routes or improperly run routes, whatever. And I saw some things that he may be a guy that Jacksonville could shop. Is that something that you're kind of hearing around the area, or is it something like there's no way?
Yeah, I don't think they're actively shopping, but I think there are 2, 3 untouchable guys in an organization these days. I mean, if you go back 10, 12, 15 years, there's no way they were going to move guys they're moving now.
Right.
So I don't think there's definitely off the table, but you'd have to really blow the doors away, and I don't think anybody's going to. I think the thing that's interesting about Brian Thomas Jr. is actually you look at his numbers and some of the key plays that he made, and we call it a bad year. And if that's his bad year, there's a good chance that he has a lot of good years ahead of him.
Yeah.
I don't think he's an unbelievable fit. I think there was alarming stuff early in the year with the lack of physicality. And I think Liam Cohen wants to be physical. I think they want to be a physical football team. But do you need to be physical with a 4-3 guy? Like, just let him go run. He changes the offense. He really takes a lot of attention from defenses. I mean, all you got to do is look at the Denver game. He didn't make a huge impact numbers-wise or for people's fantasy team, but he certainly did for Surtain. He got his attention.
Yeah.
And that opens Parker Washington up to have a
Yep.
good day. I think there's a lot of value in that. And I also think we give up on guys too quick. So I think this dude's 23 years old. He can do things that a lot of people on the planet can't do at 6'4". And I'm sticking with him. I mean, unless you just get blown away. But I would say I think he's got a lot to gain this year. I think he has to get in the good graces. But here's something I don't think a lot of people know or think or remember. I think Travis Etienne wasn't necessarily the greatest fit for this regime. And I mean, they essentially were going to replace him with Genty if they didn't go get Travis Hunter. And then in the second round, they were really looking at RJ Harvey out of UCF. Denver got him. And then they ended up getting Tootin. So I don't think they had like this all world confidence that Etienne was going to be the best fit for them. Doesn't mean they don't like the guy or the player. Just didn't seem like it was going to be their guy. But look what he did. So I think we got to be a little careful of that. I mean, again, BTJ is a tremendous skill set.
Without a doubt.
And I just don't think you can replace it. Mitch, you know that. I mean, how do you replace? You got to ask that. What's behind door number 2?
No doubt.
Yeah.
The guys that can do what he can do. He's got to get, but there's not a lot of guys that can do what he can do.
You're 23 years old, and you learn so much about yourself every year. Every year is a lifetime in this season from what you learn from yourself and from others. I think you look at his yards per catch, him and Parker Washington. Between 11 and 15 yards per catch, which is fantastic. I think it's one of those things that I like to see from a player. So say he has these unfortunate incidents for wrong routes or drop passes. How do you respond? How does a team let you respond? And I think you saw he responded in a really positive manner, whereas some other guys who got the boot, not the proverbial boot, or kind of a kick in the pants, might not have responded like that. And that's the thing about this regime that I really appreciate is that just because they draft you highly or they spend money on you, there's a standard of work, and I think that's fantastic. Casey has one more question before we let you go. Case, why don't you?
Hey, one other thing, real quick on BTJ, he's only costing $4 million.
Yeah.
I mean, right now, and so that's a bargain for that dude's skill set. At least here in 2026.
No doubt. I'm a huge, if anyone's wondering, I'm a huge Brian Thomas Jr. fan. I think he's got a lot of football ahead of him. I think he's a fantastic football player and a good guy in the locker room. Casey's got one question, and then we're going to let you go rest those vocal cords before you're on the 1s and 2s later tonight, correct?
That's right. We'll be on there.
I mean, I'll 100% vouch for that. I love BTJ. I think he's a great human. He's a hard worker. He's coachable. It was just, things that I saw on social. I thought it was a good ask, but
absolutely.
The next ask I will have, and I want a Brent big splash. I want a big Brent. This is your bold moment. What do you feel with free agency coming up and trades and so on and so forth? What do you think the biggest move is going to be for the Jaguars? And maybe it's something that only you think and know, and it may surprise some people.
That's a great one. We've heard rumblings for the last couple of months that some of the moves they make are going to surprise people. What does that mean? Because I don't really know. There's a lot of them out there that would really surprise me. But I don't think they're going to. Logic says they're not going to be big spenders. They're trying to figure out. They're going to pay $40-something million for guys not playing for them this year. So there's not a lot of wiggle room here. Like, I don't think they're going after Max Crosby. Trey Hendrickson doesn't make a ton of sense to me at face value. But I actually think that's the sneaky thing that I've thought about the most is if you can't fix defensive tackle and be dynamic there, because there's not a lot in free agency outside of John Franklin Myers. You're probably going to lose that bidding war if you tried to go after him. There's really not a whole heck of a lot in the draft, especially since you don't pick until 56. So how do you get better and more dynamic at that spot? I don't think it's going to happen, but here's my bold thing is go get a guy like Hendrickson for a year or so and kick Trayvon Walker inside that spot. And
move Trayvon inside
the guy, and now you got Trey Hendrickson, Josh Hines Allen, Trayvon Walker to ruin people's lives on that offense.
I will tell you, there will be a lack of sleep from opposing offenses if that Brent bold prediction occurs. My friend, I appreciate you joining the program. It means a ton. I know you were not at 100% vocally. You brought the juice. You ping-ponged with us. We didn't bring our A game, but my friend, you absolutely did. I appreciate you, pal. It means a ton.
Hey, great to see you guys. See you at the Players Championship, maybe.
Hey, see you. Hey, we'll see. We might be seeing
I
you
see that.
around, pal.
Yeah,
You
that's
see it?
right.
I know. This is stolen valor.
All right.
This is that's all I'm about is stolen valor. I appreciate you, Brent. God bless you,
You
pal.
guys-
It means a
Thanks,
ton. See you,
Brent.
brother. Another friend of the show, a man who's been on this show more than once. You can find him on the Shout Podcast, Syracuse.com. You can find him pretty much doing anything when it's related to the Bills. The man's got many talents. He's on the move all the time. If he's not in Buffalo, he's in Disney. And he's got his finger on the pulse for everything Buffalo Bills. And with free agency looming in the background, with the legal tampering period starting Monday, we have questions. Please welcome to the show, Matt Parrino. I appreciate you, pal. It means a ton.
I'll have answers, I think, but don't take it too seriously because who the hell knows what's going on? You know, I mean, anything could happen over the next couple of days. It's going to be, I think, a little wild ride.
All right. Well, so we all know the cap isn't real. And we've talked about the mysticism that follows the cap. That being said, if the cap is real, the boys are still a little bit over the cap. And we want to be spending in free agency. We don't. We're not going to make a big splash. Inevitably, we might. We're going to lose possibly some key starters. There could be another mass exodus like we've seen in the Bean era before. What do you think is the next step for the Buffalo Bills in these next few days?
So I think to get to operating procedure for free agency, you're going to see the Josh Allen conversion that'll open up about $12 million in cap space. That'll get them into the black, if you will, and get them some money to start playing around in free agency. The big one too is a tough one. And I wonder if they're still kind of figuring it out, is the Dawson Knox situation. That cap number is massive, but if you want to talk about impact on an organization, it's been massive for Dawson Knox over the last couple of years. And, Dalton's struggled to stay healthy, and not to any fault of his own, but when he's been out, it's pretty cool to have a tight end one that you can go to and kind of plug in. And Dawson Knox has been that for them. But at $17 million as a backup, as a cap hit this year, if they were to just straight up release him, that's $10.5 million right there they're getting to use in this cycle. I don't think that's necessarily what they want to do, but maybe it's one of those things where they say, hey, man, we love you. This has got to get reworked a little bit. Let us cut you. Let us get that $10 million to use. You go out and see what you're worth, and then we'll come back to the table and just see, reset things a little bit. I think that's the other move. And then the other two big ones are what you're going to do with Deion Dawkins and Ed Oliver. And the reports the last couple of days coming out of Indy were that the Bills have been approached about an Ed Oliver trade, but they are not coming to the table. They're not interested in it, which tells me if he's a part of the Jim Leonard scheme moving forward, you extend him right now because the sack production's not there. You're probably going to get him at a number that somebody of his talents, you're not going to be able to get at that number. So if you want to extend that a couple of years, you're looking at another 10, 12 million that you're adding in cap space this season. And the other one is Deion Dawkins. Either a restructure, kick the can down the road a little bit, which I think is dangerous with the offensive lineman who's 32 years old, or you give him a brand new contract, bring that cap number down this year and kick that can down the road a little bit by giving him more years. Those to me are the four big levers that Bean has to pull. He's also got to probably cut Curtis Samuel. That'll give him about $6.5 million. And then maybe Taylor Rapp, depending on if he's a fit. I saw him working out at the facility in a post that he just put on an Instagram. So maybe they're not going to do that. We'll see. But I mean, they're going to need some resources if they want to take a couple swings here over the next couple of days.
It's interesting. You were in Indy, which is a information sharing bonanza, right? Like organizations have sat with themselves for a while. They understand the direction they want to go, but there's still a lot of moving parts and there's still a lot of unknown things, including what people are coming to them at the table, talking to agents, stuff like that. You bring up Deion Dawkins. I think it's extremely hard to find a quality left tackle. And I think when push came to shove, Deion played very well. And when the moments were at their greatest, I think he's a fantastic tackle. Production wise, you want to keep him about, you want to do that the right way. Ed Oliver, I think we saw what this team looked like when Ed went out for that extended period of time. He is a prolific defensive lineman and a pass rusher coming from where Jim Leonard was is of great importance, right? Like you just think if you think of Denver defense that's synonymous with sack production and you're getting after the passer, But that being said, going back to the offensive line, the thing that irks me, it doesn't irk me, but it's on the forefront of my mind because I'm an offensive lineman, is there's a possibility they lose 2 quality starters in that offensive line because they've made the opportunity, they've had the opportunity to get paid somewhere else.
Connor, right?
Ear to the ground. I know your ear was to the ground at the combine. Is there anything you heard and speculation on how they're going to address those two with the guard, with their starting left guard and center?
So I went into the week thinking like I did at the start of the offseason was that the number was going to probably be lower on McGovern. I think, I don't have to tell you this. It's really hard when you find a center that works with your quarterback and is able to kind of, run the show the way that Connor has the last couple of years since you left. That's tough to find. So a lot of times, you know, you pay for that. You're willing to pay for that. So I thought the number made more sense than what some people were thinking that David Edwards would make on the open market. I saw some projections at like 20 million per season, which I think the Bills just wouldn't be able to party that way with him, unfortunately. But what I've heard is that maybe that market for Edwards won't be as robust as you think. There are some guards that are in the market that are at the top of the table, if you will. And, there are some things with David Edwards. He had that kind of gap there. He was dealing with some concussion issues in LA, comes over to the Buffalo Bills, has that kind of reset year. And then over the last 2 years, I think it was put all that to bed for the most part. I mean, honestly, really similar story to yours. And the way that, like, when some of that stuff was popping up and, you played through it, you talked through it, and all of a sudden we're to a point now 2 years since he became the starter where nobody really even talks about that anymore. He doesn't really either. So I think I'm definitely at a place now after having conversations there that Edwards is more likely than McGovern. And obviously there was a story from Tim Graham that came out today where Connor said he basically hasn't been in contact with the Bills since the end of the season exit meeting, which I don't think is surprising. I think sometimes when Brandon does say, hey, we want you to go check your market and see what that number is, it really is. Go to free agency, see what it is. And, because he's one of the top centers on the market, you're going to get paid especially with the cap ballooning to over 300 million. And I just think the Bills aren't going to be in that, being able to kind of play in that deep end of the pool.
What a beautiful problem to have for these guys, right? Like an opportunity to go get paid. This is a business. Dave just had his 4th kiddo. Connor's going into year 8, I believe. What a slam dunk later in your career to still have that opportunity to go chase the cheese. To your point, I think Brandon, especially in not speaking to Connor, what that comes off of is not a lack of wanting or a lack of thinking he's a productive player. I think anyone who watched Connor do his thing knows that he's a fantastic football player and, a very good guard, but an even better center. He deserves that opportunity. I'm just thinking there's anticipation for a season. Everyone's talking about holes to be filled. What's one that might not be talked about that's on the forefront of your mind for this roster coming up as free agency comes about?
That's a great question. I think, it's if we're going one that's over talked about, it would probably be the wide receiver, right? But if it's
I totally agree. By the way, dude, put that shit to bed. It is okay. We could have a whole podcast on that one. Keep going.
Yes, but I think the one that's kind of sneaky. It depends, right? Like, how does Deion Walker project in this defense? There are a lot of people that are breaking this down. I think the guys over at Cover One do a great job, and they put out a lot of stuff where he can be the nose in a 3-4 system. And, his size, his versatility, what he brings as a run defender, how he's going to continue to grow as a pass rusher. I think you could put that on him in year 2. If you're comfortable there, then that kind of, you take that off the table as a need. But maybe in free agency, that's something that you're willing to spend some dollars. I mean, you think about a guy like John Franklin Myers, who was a beast in New York, played in Denver the last couple of years. You add a guy like that into your scheme, and now all of a sudden it gets really interesting what you can do, especially when you have 5 down linemen. Could you imagine a Franklin Myers type with Oliver and Walker as kind of like the 3-4 ends, and then Rousseau and Michael Hoyt as the stand-up on the outside? I mean, that has the potential to be terrifying.
Yeah, it absolutely does. Speaking of that, Michael Hoyt, how much did we miss him after he went down.
That was, to me, so there's a whole, speaking of things we can do a whole podcast on, the Brandon Bean, like, story arc here from, sunglass wearing, big baller Bean, trading for Stephon Diggs to the villain in the story that's kind of been created over the last month or so.
Yeah.
I don't think he gets enough credit for the swing that was Michael Hoyt. When people are talking about some of the misses, do more at wide receiver, do this, do that, do that. Michael Hoyt looked like an absolutely unit changing addition for 2 games.
Stallion.
Yeah,
It was the difference maker. And unfortunately, you only saw, I think, what was it, 2.5 quarters with him and Oliver on the field together at the same time. That's a gut punch.
It is. It is. I was a big fan, especially, yeah, dude, I think he's got an extraordinary career, hopefully with the Buffalo Bills organization. Casey's got one last question for you before we let you and your backwards hat go. Casey, what do you got for us, pal?
Well, we want to shoot for the big take here, with everything going on. We got a lot of trades coming up and free agency and so on and so forth. But is there something, how should I put this? Is there something that you would hang your hat on that some other people may not know about, that you can't stop thinking about, that you believe either A, needs to happen, or B, is going to happen?
And why is it Max Crosby to the Bills? That's my problem.
Where are you at on Max Crosby? Let me ask you that. Has there been any fall off to his game? Are you giving up? Let me ask you this. Let me pitch this back to you. Are you giving up 2 first-round picks and possibly a player for Max Crosby? Is he changing the dynamic of things to that point at this stage of his career?
I would give up the kitchen sink for
Ooh,
Max Crosby, barring that player is not Ed Oliver. Because that's the kind of thing.
Yeah.
That being said, it's hard as an ex-player to be like, give it up and a player. I mean, I don't want to sit that. He is worth more than 2 first-round draft picks, in my opinion. That man is
especially with the Bills pick.
He's the epitome of a tone-setting, game-changing, keep you up at night before you play him kind of player.
And I could add to that, he's also doing with the Raiders. And do you know how hard sometimes that is to get out of bed knowing you're going to get shit kicked every day and be like, all right, well, I still got to play my A game. Like, you're going to people will question that, but you go and play, you put them in a system. Sometimes people just need a place, a change of environment, a change of coaches, just a change in general. And you put him on the Buffalo Bills, ooh, buddy.
I think he still has so many productive years ahead of him. I've seen his motor in person. I've seen the competitor he is. I've heard the lore of how he attacks being a professional and how infectious that is to the rest of the guys around him. Not only is he productive on the field, he's a tone setter for that locker room, which I think is profound. That being said, to Casey's question, what's your hot free agency hot take coming down the pipe?
So here's my plan at receiver.
Here we go again.
I would like the Bills to sign Mike Evans. I think that's where I've landed as a guy that comes in here and gives you a completely different floor at the position, right? A guy that's been in the league. Like, does anybody else notice how much different things were for Keon Coleman when Brandon Cooks got to town? Like, he needed that vet in the room, somebody that was going to show him the ropes. I don't think there's anybody that commands more respect in a locker room at this stage in their career than Mike Evans. And here's the other part of it. There's going to probably be a hard decision or two coming up here. And I think a post-June 1st cut of Taron Johnson is for sure on the table. It is jarring to hear that, because you want to talk about a franchise pillar, a captain, former captain, a leader, an all-pro. I don't necessarily know if he has a home in this new defense. Or unless they envision something new for him. Is he going to transition to safety? Is he continue to play in some type of quasi nickel role? Like, those are all questions that Jim Leonard didn't shy away from at his introductory press conference. Like, those are legit conversations happening in the building. And we talked to Brandon in Indy. Everything is still on the table. You get $9 million back if you cut him post June 1st. Let him maybe go find a more scheme specific fit. And then with that money, I think by the time you get to the season, it's not going to take the Miami Dolphins long to realize they need to stock up in 2027 for that loaded draft to try to get one of those quarterbacks. Go get Jalen Waddle. Call it a day. You have this unbelievable wide receiver room. They tried to do it at the deadline last year. Stephon Diggs was a try it until you finally got through the finish line. That to me is like the two-pronged attack. And oh, by the way, I'm not stopping there. And I'm not just doing this for the click.
Go.
We're getting hotter.
The backwards hat.
Draft a wide receiver. This is a deep class. You're not going to get any of those top 3 unless you get up into the top 15. And I just don't think Brandon's going to be that aggressive to give up that much capital. But it's super deep at that second tier, third tier. Go out and get 1 or 2. So you're in a position. This is something that I've been critical on Brandon of. Go get wide receivers and force yourself to cut ones that mean something to you, because that's how you build the best rooms. Get to training camp and say, you know what, Josh Palmer, we're excited about you. You're on the books for $11 million, but these 2 guys outperformed you, and we're going to go with them. That's truly, let the best man win and build the best room, build the best roster. I think that's what the best teams do. And I think it would be a massive overcorrection based on how much the room was kind of, I don't want to say ignored, but maybe not some of the big swings last offseason. But I think that gives you a really a bona fide terrifying offense around Josh Allen. And if you lose some of those offensive linemen and you have to rely on some of these younger players, Cedric Van Granger could be your center if Connor McGovern goes out the door. I don't think it fixes everything because you need to protect, but with more weapons and more seasoned, proven weapons around Josh Allen, I think that, I don't know, gets you excited.
But and I agree. I mean, you to your point about offensive linemen, no offense, Mitch, but if
whatever you're gonna say,
I mean, if you have to lose 1 or 2 or something and just see how a young guy can perform and whatever. But and I'm saying this because you have a quarterback in Josh Allen that not only can pick apart the field with his arm, but he has the ability to scramble and run. So, if there's something that breaks down or breaks through with a rookie or something like that, he'll be able to get out of it.
Dude, Mitch is about to come through the screen. He is about to come through the screen right now.
And I'm not.
That's why I love Casey.
But I'm just saying to make your point a little more valuable. If you need to go get wide receivers and some more weapons, and I see, and now I'm going against everything I ever think about because the offensive line has to be the most tight knit. We're not letting anybody touch this quarterback type group, but this is chess.
Josh Allen was sacked 40 times last year, guys. We have to have a little bit of that in the conversation too. These guys are great. No doubt about it. And it's tough. I mean, Mitch, I don't got to tell you, it's tough to block for Josh Allen, I would imagine. And there's a lot of those sacks that he puts on himself. But I do think they do a really good job. And, Cromer's not there anymore. So that's something that is a part of the conversation. I've heard a lot of great things about Pat Meyer. I think that Joe Brady believes he's going to be able to develop guys. So you take your swings. I mean, you were there when they brought in McGovern in that first year playing next to him. I mean, nobody thought about him as a free agent addition. And that pro scouting staff found him, and he's been a huge piece for them over the last couple of years.
I will say Brandon and his staff do a very good job of bringing offensive linemen specifically in for these 1 or 2 years, and then they prove it, and then they get extended. They've done a fantastic job of always adding veterans who've played and proven they can play that maybe that's not on the forefront of people's minds. Going back to weapons, we talked about receivers. Matt Parrino, you are a weapon in this space. You are a weapon as a friend. That backwards hat is a weapon. When you put that on,
I'll turn it around.
It's all systems go.
It's making
the
you uncomfortable.
Yankees. You're a fucking
big Yankees
dog.
guy. I'm a big Yankees guy.
Appreciate you. I appreciate you jumping on, Matt. God bless you, pal.
All right, guys.
Thanks, Matt.
See you, buddy.
And there's nothing I